Blessings in Yah and Yahushua HaMashiach. This is Salt and Light, your voice for biblical encouragement and teaching from the word of Yahuwah. Let us as followers of Yahushua be the salt and light. That's in Matthew 5:13 through 16. This is where truth is shared and discussed so you may be encouraged and challenged as the body of Yahushua and grow together. I pray everyone is safe and well. For those who are new to this podcast, welcome. For those who are returning, welcome back. It's great to have you. Salt and Light is available on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Getter, and MeWe. Visit my pages on social media where I have two links posted. One takes you to the website where you can choose how to listen. We are available on Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify, Podbean, Stitcher, Deezer, Buzzsprout, Good Pods, and many more. The other links to Patreon. So if the Lord so touches your heart to give and to support the work of this ministry, we do thank you and we bless you for it. Salt and Light comes to you from EliteU. Please download the free EliteU app. Don't forget to subscribe to Salt and Light channel on YouTube as well and give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Please like and share the link. Please visit our other aspect of the ministry at Salt and Light Art on Facebook group page as well as on YouTube, where you can see pics, reels of paintings, and upcoming art projects. Your support helps reach more people for the kingdom of Yah and to level up as a podcast and to grow this ministry. Once again, thank you for your support and your prayers. We all need encouragement right now. Be blessed and safe. In the name of Yahuwah, I love you all. Praise Yah. Here, the aspect of this ministry, the other aspect of it is the Salt and Light art. I've picked up the brush and as of last year, like around May of last year, started painting again. The Lord has gifted me with that talent. I've always drawn pretty much all my life, but I've strayed for many, many years and stopped drawing and painting and everything like that. But as I mentioned, the Lord just led me to do that, to pick that back up again, and I thank Him for that. Last year, I'm in a series right now of paintings called the Northern Light Collection. So just paintings on the Northern Lights, Aurora Borealis, or what have you. That's another name for them. So just go on Facebook, art, Salt and Light Art, and just my regular Facebook feed. I post paintings on there as well, pictures of them. I do some quick videos on YouTube. I don't do tutorials. I don't think I'm there yet. I haven't done anything like that on YouTube or anything, but yeah, willing, maybe in the near future, I will do that. Still working on techniques and things like that. So just go on there. I hope it blesses you. I hope the paintings bless you. Um, as the Lord leads, I try to name the paintings with a scripture for that painting, and that's the inspiration for it. So just to glorify the Lord, I used to paint and draw before the Lord, so why not pick it back up and glorify Him with it? And not we are not to waste our gifts and talents that He has given unto us. So I just pray again that it blesses somebody out there. Art is a great tool to just bring again just inspiration to people and to bless people. And so that being said, this is I did an episode earlier today on just closing out the book of Daniel. So we're just discussing chapter 11 and 12 and just a little bit about the end times. This episode is different regarding the content. I'm going to be sharing just some articles. It is a little dated already because this happened, I believe, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. So just bear with me. Right now, that's when the Holy Spirit just urged me to nudged me to do this, and not last week. Well, last week I didn't even do an episode at all. So um, this is articles and just sharing some thoughts regarding the Nashville school shooting that had happened, that tragedy, and the just transgenderism, and because the shooter just so happens to have been a transgender individual. So just some thoughts on just how the church should respond, um, and things like that. Just to give it some context, I'm going to just mention, an article regarding the school shooting itself, and what had transpired. This is from, I believe, CNN. Covenant school shooter was under care for emotional disorder and hid guns at home, police say. So, um, again, this is from CNN. The 28-year-old who killed 3 children and 3 adults. Yes, it is a tragedy for those who haven't heard. They killed 3 children and 3 adults at a private Christian school in Nashville, was under care for an emotional disorder, and had legally bought 7 firearms that were hidden at home, Metro Nashville Police Chief John Drake said Tuesday. The parents of the shooter, Audrey Hale, spoke to police and said they knew Hale had bought and sold one weapon and believed that was the extent of it. The parents felt Hale should not own weapons, the chief said. On Monday morning, Hale left home with a red bag, and the parents asked what was inside, but were dismissed, Drake said. 3 of the weapons were used in the attack Monday. The 7 weapons were purchased between October 20th of 2020 and June 6th of 2022, police spokesman Don Aaron said. Police also said Tuesday they did not know a motive. The shooter targeted the school and church in the attack, but did not specifically target any of the 6 people killed, Aaron said. Hale's writings mentioned a mall near the school as another possible target, he added. The news conference came a day after Hale, a former student at the Covenant School, stormed into the elementary school and killed 6 people before being fatally shot by responding police officers. The attack was the 19th shooting at an American school or university in 2023, in which at least one person was wounded, according to a CNN tally and the deadliest since the May attack in Uvalde, Texas, left 21 dead. There have been 42 K-12 school shootings since Uvalde. The victims included 3 9-year-old students, Evelyn Diggins, William Kidney, and Haley Scruggs, the daughter of lead church pastor Chad Scruggs. Also killed was Cynthia Peak, 61, believed to be a substitute teacher, Catherine Kuntz, the 60-year-old head of the school, and Mike Hill, a 61-year-old custodian, police said. All of Tennessee was hurt yesterday. Tennessee Governor Bill Lee said in a video statement Tuesday, the governor said his wife Maria Lee was best friends with one of the victims, Peak, who was supposed to come over to the Lee's home for dinner Monday evening. We can all agree on one thing, that every human life has great value. We will act to prevent this from happening again. There is a clear desire in all of us, whether we agree on the action steps or not, that we must work to find ways to protect against evil, Lee said in the 5-minute video. Over the course of Tuesday, the details of the heinous attack came into view as police released body cam footage of the fatal shooting of the attacker. Hale's childhood friend revealed the shooter's disturbing messages, and those who knew the victims reflected on their lost loved ones. Earlier Tuesday, police released body camera footage from the 2 officers who rushed into the school on Monday and fatally shot the mass shooter. The footage is from the body-worn cameras of officers Rex Engelbert and Michael Colazzo, who police said fatally shot the attacker on Monday at 10:27 a.m. The video begins with Engelbert arriving at the school to find a woman outside who says the school is on lockdown, but there are 2 children unaccounted for. Another school official is seen handing the officer a key to open a door into the building, and a group of 5 officers enter the school amid wailing fire alarms and immediately go into several empty classrooms to look for the suspect. They heard gunfire on the 2nd floor. and so hustled up the stairs as the bangs grew louder, the video shows. The officers approached the sound of gunfire, and Engelbert, armed with an assault-style rifle, rounded a corner and fired multiple times at a person near a large window who dropped to the ground, the video shows. Collazo then pushed forward and appeared to shoot the person on the ground 4 times with a handgun, yelling, "Stop moving." The officers finally approached the person, moved a gun away, and then radioed, "Suspect down, suspect down." The video adds further insight into the timeline of the shooting and the police response. The first 911 call about the shooting came in 10:13 a.m., and the shooter was killed 14 minutes later, according to police. The body cam footage of Engelbert entering the school and shooting the attacker lasts for about 3 to 4 minutes. The Covenant School is a private Christian school educating about 200 students from pre-K through 6th grade. The school is a ministry of Covenant Presbyterian Church, its website states. Nashville Mayor John Cooper told CNN the swift police response prevented further disaster. Could have been worse without this great response, the mayor of the police response. This was very planned and numerous sites were investigated. The police chief similarly praised the response as swift. "I was hoping this day would never come here in this city, but we will never wait to make entry and go into and stop a threat, especially when it deals with our children," Drake said in a Monday news conference. Hale left writings pertaining to the shooting and had scouted a second possible attack location in Nashville, but because of a threat assessment by the suspect, "There's too much security, decided not to," Drake said on Monday. The shooter left behind drawn-out maps of the school detailing how this was all going to take place, he added. The writings revealed the attack at the Christian school was calculated and planned. Police said the shooter was someone that had multiple rounds of ammunition, prepared for confrontation with law enforcement, prepared to do more harm than was actually done, Drake said. 3 weapons, an AR-15, a Kel-Tec Sub-2000, and a handgun were found at the school, he said. A search warrant executed at Hale's home led to the seizure of a sawed-off shotgun, a second shotgun, and other evidence, according to police. They found a lot of documents. This was clearly planned, Mayor Cooper said. There was a lot of ammunition. There were guns. Police have referred to Hale as a female shooter, and at an evening news conference added Hale was transgender. Hale used male pronouns on a social media profile, a spokesperson told CNN when asked to clarify. Hale graduated from Nassau College of Art and Design in Nashville last year, the president of the school confirmed to CNN. Hale worked as a freelance graphic designer and a part-time grocery shopper at LinkedIn, profile says. Information from police and from the shooter's childhood friend help illuminate a timeline of the deadly attack. Right, and just before 10 a.m. Monday, the shooter sent an ominous message to a childhood friend. The friend told CNN on Tuesday in an Instagram message to Alveria Patton, a Nashville radio host, just before 10 a.m. Monday, the shooter said, "I'm planning to die today," and that it would be on the news. One day this will make more sense, Hale wrote. "I've left more than enough evidence behind, but something bad is about to happen." Patton told CNN's Don Lemon she was the shooter's childhood basketball teammate and knew her well when we were kids, but hadn't spoken in years and is unsure why she received the message. Disturbed by its content, she called a suicide prevention line and the Nashville-Davidson County Sheriff's Office at 10:13 a.m. At that very minute, police in Nashville also got a 911 call of an active shooter inside the school and rushed there. Armed with the firearms, the shooter got into the school by firing through glass doors and climbing through to get inside. Surveillance video released by Metro Nashville police shows, pointing an assault-style weapon. The shooter walked through the school's hallways, the video shows. All right, it just goes on and on. So 3 children and 3 adults were killed. And it just goes over the timeline. And says his daughter, Brittany Hill, said, "I have watched school shootings happen over the years and never thought I would lose a loved one over a person trying to solve a temporary problem with a permanent solution," she said. "I am so sorry for the loss of those children," she added. "Our hearts are completely broken. We cannot believe this has happened. Evelyn was a shining light in this world. We appreciate all the love and support, but ask for space as we grieve," the family said. The Covenant School issued a statement Monday night grieving the shooting. "Our community is heartbroken. We are grieving tremendous loss and are in shock," coming out of the terror that shattered our school and church. We are focused on loving our students, our families, our faculty, and staff, and beginning the process of healing, the school said in its statement. Law enforcement is conducting this investigation, and while we understand there is a lot of interest and there will be a lot of discussion about and speculation surrounding what happened, we will continue to prioritize the well being of our community. We appreciate the outpouring of support we have received, and we are tremendously grateful to the first responders who acted quickly to protect our students, faculty, and staff. We ask for privacy as our community grapples with this terrible tragedy for our students, parents, faculty, and staff, the statement said. And of course, this has to be addressed is gun violence is the leading cause of death for children. Firearms were the leading cause of death among children and adolescents in 2021 for the second year in a row, according to CNN analysis of data from the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Firearms first surpassed motor vehicle crashes as the leading cause of death for children and adolescents in 2020, after a sharp increase in the first year of the pandemic. Deaths from both firearms and motor vehicles crashes increased again in 2021, CDC data shows. And, you know, uh, that's a whole other issue, obviously, regarding guns and gun rights and all of these things. So yeah, that is a lot. So again, that the Nashville school shooting. So our prayers go with the community, right, and the families of the children and faculty and staff, um, and for the city and town as a whole. That there is healing and restoration for the glory and the honor of His name. Um, so a lot going on. Again, that's dated. Uh, this just didn't happen, but I'm pretty sure either you've heard or you could research it. Happening again in Nashville at the Covenant School, which is it. Let me see here. It says, all right, now I'm gonna get some articles here from the stream. It's actually four of them. So again, in response to what had happened, right? So there's you know, um, a lot of information, a lot of feedback regarding this tragedy, and not to mention again violence as a whole, and guns and gun rights, as well as transgenderism, since the shooter did identify herself as transgender. She was a transgender individual. So that also, is a lot. Transgenderism is um, a hot topic in the days that we are living in. Um, so let me just start just reading and sharing just some thoughts on these things. This is one from the stream. Uh, says the my pronoun is Legion, Satan, and the Nashville Church Massacre. Okay, so this is by John Zimmerak. Again, I don't, you know, uh, I'm just sharing the articles. I may not wholeheartedly agree with, uh, the writer's perspective or anything like that. But again, I do follow the stream as well. Um, but there are things that I don't follow it wholeheartedly. I don't swallow everything 100%. There are some. There are just different writers on staff. Some of them are Catholic and so on and so forth. Some of them, Christian Catholic, what have you. And they are on staff as writers for the stream. But that being said, this was posted on March 29th of this year. It says, in the powerful forthcoming commentary, Mark Judge refers to womanhood as God's masterpiece. There are countless ways in which this is true. We can most fruitfully consider them by thinking first about the Blessed Virgin, Jesus' mother, and then about our own mothers, sisters, daughters, and wives. Consider their courage, self-sacrifice, wisdom, and compassion, the crosses they bear, and blessings they bring. But I know Satan's masterpiece. That is the thing he made to ape, attack, and pervert God's creation, which he hates. As an arrogant, lofty spirit, he loathes our bodies. As a sexless, loveless rationalist, he's revolted by reproduction. As a metaphysical terrorist, he's addicted to rebellion. So the enemy who strives to destroy us as proxies for a God he cannot harm fixes his steely gaze on our soft and vulnerable parts, our hearts and loins and wombs, to make us little Satans. I mostly don't mean that the enemy tempts us to sins of the flesh. That's true and it's quite serious. But as C.S. Lewis observed in the Screw Tape Letters, the accuser isn't satisfied just trying to damn people by luring them to have sex too soon or too randomly. That's rookie stuff for him, too easily repented. No, the goal instead is to comprehensively pervert, twist, and turn against God himself the very structure of his creation, to turn us not just into disobedient children, but little demons ourselves, consumed as Satan is with loathing, revulsion, and rebellion aimed at God's exquisite handiwork. We see a strong streak of that in the works of the Marquis de Sade, the first pro-choice philosopher in history and the father of the sexual revolution. His arguments were picked up by Jean-Paul Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir, mainstreamed into second-wave feminism and repeated cluelessly by the likes of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. De Sade didn't favor mere sexual indulgence, but aggressive, violent perversion, indulged in complete with blasphemy, incest, kidnapping, torture, and murder. It isn't straightforward lust that drives a man to imagine priests defiling the Eucharist in the course of raping nuns. That takes a spirit not of this earth, which hates the place and everyone in it. Sade was not insane, he was possessed. After he died in squalid obscurity, the spirit in him moved on and made sure that Sade's tedious, sickening works began to fascinate intellectuals who quoted it and reprinted it, making it somehow respectable. Why were two high budget Hollywood movies made lionizing this aristocrat who tortured impoverished prostitutes? That spirit planted the seeds in subsequent centuries for the worldview we now see in bloom, its flowers of evil bobbing outside our classrooms and our libraries. We saw it outside what used to be my favorite late night spot in Dallas, Buzz Brews restaurant in Lakewood. Some months ago, under new ownership, the place started hosting all ages drag queen brunches. That means, in plain English, bad parents, come bring your kids to be groomed by men dressed as strippers and prostitutes. Such fun for all. When Christians announced they planned to pray and sing outside, the organizers of the drag event invited Antifa to show up in mass wielding AR-15s to terrorize the Christians. The message was clear. These activists hate us because they hate creation and God, whom they hate because they're possessed. I absolutely don't mean to condemn the typical victims of a transgender madness, which is a mental illness morphed by ideology into a Gnostic grudge against God. The stream has featured detailed, sympathetic stories of detransitioners, of people whose emotional problems were misdiagnosed and mistreated by deluded or greedy doctors. To those people, we owe only mercy, kindness, and welcome, as the Gettys put it in their exquisite song, Old Church Arise. With shield of faith and belt of truth, we'll stand against the devil's lies, an army bold whose battle cry is love, reaching out to those in darkness. Our call to war, to love the captive soul, but to rage against the captor. And with the sword that makes the wounded whole, we will fight with faith and valor. But the high priest of this new cult of Celebi, the Mediterranean goddess who demanded self-castration, are servants of our enemy. And that's how they see us. No wonder that we've endured the further act of violence aimed at Christians by transgenderists in the monstrous Nashville school shooting, unreleased just days after Tennessee passed a law protecting children from transgender grooming. That's no coincidence, as we'll probably know for sure if the authorities ever replace the testosterone-juiced transgender mass killers manifesto. It won't be the last attack. They've promised that. What else do you think it means when we're awaiting the Trans Day of Vengeance? Not that the reported of an eruption of calls by trans activists for more violence against Christians. The courageous Terry Schilling called things out as they are. In a post, you told a million mentally ill people with suicidal tendencies that they think they were born in the wrong bodies and received cross-sex foreign hormones, that Christians were going to genocide them nonstop for 3 weeks. What did you think would happen? Says, my heart breaks for every parent and teacher who is watching what is happening in Nashville today. When will it end? What makes transgenderism so splendidly satanic, so much more buckling evil than homosexuality, abortion, or any of Desadie's other private hobbies? The answer isn't simple. Instead, it has many layers of skin, like some infernal onion or fast-shedding snake. First, this ideology pleases the enemy because it targets children, bullied boys, or autistic girls, the victims of molestation. These and others like them get herded by their teachers onto the castration conveyor belt, the fast track to steroid poisoning. The innocence, vulnerability, and helplessness of children has always attracted the most evil among us, such as the shooter in Tennessee, whose real name and fake pronouns I won't even mention. Okay. Second, the transgender weaponizes and perverts our sympathy for victims, which finds its highest expression in our tears for the suffering Messiah. The main power move of the demon-driven left is out in our time is victimization, the manufacture of fake victims to be used as stalking horses and puppets in a quest for ever more power. We rightly feel terrible for anyone tormented by confusion over the most basic human reality imaginable, our nature as persons of either one sex or the other. Once our eyes are clouded by tears, it's easy to manage the sleight of hand that grants the transgender high priest the whip hand over society. If you criticize the doctors, clinics, and drug companies making billions by mutilating children, the high priest reach into their hats and pull out some tormented soul whom we are allegedly driving to suicide. They really are black magicians. Finally, the transgender cult aims at staggering power and quickly reveals its nature as a pretext for mass bullying and abuse, allegedly in order to prevent an unproven wave of suicides induced by transphobia. We must meet each of the following list of demands, which grows by the news cycles. Deny the importance and reality of biological sex. Women become people who menstruate, or as some in Britain's NHS, front hole people. Roll that around your head as you think about your mom. Allow mentally ill or depravedly opportunistic boys to take over women's sports. Destroy women's privacy in restrooms and locker rooms. Subject women prisoners to male rapists wearing wigs. Force the entire population to speak differently, revising a basic part of speech, the pronoun. Fully fund the mutilation of children's bodies through government programs, then offer the same to soldiers, even prisoners. Shame as transphobic haters normal heterosexual people who won't pursue romances with crude, surgical, similar who ape the opposite sex. Cancel and censor authors, speakers, thinkers who dissent from all this satanic madness. Deprive parents of custody if they won't enable this butchery to be practiced on their kids. Transgenderism's high priests are thuggishly trying to dominate us all as part of a lunatic scheme to decastrate nature and obliterate humanity as God saw fit to make it. If there's any worldview more openly diabolical out in the world today, I don't want to know about it. I'm middling at prayer and terrible at fasting. All right, so that was the writer of that article. This is another one here from the stream. American Psycho, the hatred for women that lurks in gay and trans culture. In 2018, this was posted by Mark Judge on March 30th of this year. In 2018, the videographer Monica Rodman published in a remarkable article in The Advocate, a gay magazine. Rodman recalled being verbally abused while working on the set of a film. The director of the film, a gay man named George, was acting unnecessarily hostile toward women and women only. He treated the men on set as his equals and the women as subsidiaries. Rodman had brought up the hate that dare not speak its name, the hatred too many gay men have for women. That enmity has been noted by cultural observers going back at least as far as the gay writer Gore Vidal. It also fuels the modern trans and drag show movements. The main reason is obvious. To gay men, women are competition. Gore Vidal wrote about this back in the 1950s. To a gay man, the ideal mate is strong, handsome, athletic, loaded with testosterone, muscular, and brave. Not effeminate, in short, an idealized straight man. As Vidal saw it, this accounted for a lot of the unhappiness in the male gay community. Their goal is always out of reach. It seems that in the last few years, this dissatisfaction has hardened into cold rage. Transgender activists talk about the problem of genital preference because straight people don't want to date them. Any hint that transgenderism might not be normal is met with violence, most tragically at the recent shooting, which took the lives of 3 children at the Covenant Children Christian Elementary School in Nashville. There's a direct line between the misogamy Gore Vidal described decades ago and the shooting in Nashville. There were women where women was once competition for gay men. Now it is insisted that gender itself does not exist. As America's moral foundations crumble, the demand for celebration of the perverse has become shrill and violent. Still, amidst all the confusion, all the new confusion, the old masculinity rules. Facing the truth is always difficult. Women are amazing, miraculous beings. When faced with that much awesomeness, some people just retreat into resentment. Women are phenomenal, not just in their beauty, but the way they talk, analyze problems with an insight often lacking in men, and often show twice the toughness, courage, and perverseness of tough guys. When faced with this kind of mystical and mysterious force, some people just can't take it. I've been cast on the rocks myself plenty of times, he said. They retreat into misogyny. It's always been a problem with the gay community, and it's now one in the transgender movement, with biological men taking over women's sports and donning gal face akin to blackface. As Rodman wrote in The Advocate, we unknowingly excuse gay men of their misogynist tendencies, especially when it comes to verbiage and something there. And the more we are unaware, the longer we allow misogyny to exist among those whom we've long thought to be our brothers in arms. Rodman also blasts drag queen RuPaul, who spuriously talks about drag as a big F you to male-dominated culture. As Rodman writes, what alarms me about this argument is that a gay man who obstinately believes in rejecting masculine tropes thrives on parodying femininity. Some feminists go as far as to draw similarities to blackface, where men dress in drag and supposedly imitate women. It is most often very sexist in a remarkably similar way to whites imitating racial minorities. You think drag queens mostly don't try to look like middle-aged housewives or even young moms, but like strippers and prostitutes grotesquely embracing extremely sexualized male visions of women's. Just like racist whites painting themselves up as clownishly exaggerated depictions of African Americans. The most misogynist work of popular culture in my lifetime has probably been American Psycho, a 1991 novel that became a film and Broadway show. It follows killer Patrick Bateman as he tortures and murders several women in New York. Liberal fans of American Psycho have pretzeled themselves into thinking the book is a satire of the excess of 1980s Reagan America. This is bunk. Author Bret Easton Ellis, a gay man himself, sometimes comes close to admitting the truth. Is it about a gay hated of women? He stammered in one interview. Maybe it is. You tell me. When asked about it by The Guardian, Ellis offered this. If you're writing about misogynist, what does then make a book misogynist? I don't think I'm a misogynist, but even if I was, so what? And so on and so forth. I don't think most men are misogynist. Do we sometimes joke about women, which is often locker room talk that conceals the fear and awe most guys have for women? Yes, that's far from misogamy. Behind our occasional jokes and ribald double engenders is a genuine fear and respect for one of God's masterpieces. So, Um, this here is one. Let me see. Again, from the stream. This is from the Brew. Biden declares transgender Americans shape our nation's soul. And there was some other legal news last night, but it's slipped. Okay, so much action on the transgender front. Thursday, we had to give it its own brew. But first, huge news from the legal, and this is from Al Peralta. This was posted March 31st of this year. Huge news from the legal world. Actress Gwyneth Paltrow won her legal case against that fellow Skyer yesterday. Then there's that doesn't matter. And Trump indicted. So all of these things are just also distractions. Who cares about Trump being indicted? Okay, here. 3 days after Covenant School massacre, Biden releases Transgender Day of Visibility proclamation declaring transgender Americans shape our nation's soul. Let me just say that about the transgender. Uh, there was supposed to be a transgender day of vengeance, I believe, sometime last week. But and we prayed and praised Yahuwah that in Yahushua Hamashiach that nothing happened. It actually even got canceled. So praise Yah for that. Transgender day of vengeance. Yeah, that's how far we've come. But thank God nothing happened. It got canceled, and so on and so forth. So praise God for that. So this is again, Joe Biden released a flowing, glowing celebration of transgender ideology and defense of sex changes for children Thursday. The occasion, the Transgender Day of Visibility. I wonder how administration figures would celebrate their Transgender Day of Visibility. Lifting women's luggage from airports? Sorry, that'd be Sam Britton's Gender Fluid Day of Visibility in airport security cameras. Seriously, Biden's proclamation is worth a read. If only to ask, have you ever seen a statement from Biden that forceful and eloquent about America or faith? I mean, he's actually proclaims transgender Americans shape our nation's soul. Shape it into what? You'll also notice Biden ignored the planned Transgender Day of Vengeance planned for D.C. and, of course, the Nashville shooting. The poster for this Day of Vengeance before being taken down by Twitter says, "Wear a mask, bring a buddy." So why do they want people to wear a mask when is a this event is in conjunction with the Transgender Day of Visibility? Late Thursday evening, word broke out that organizers have called off their Transgender Day of Vengeance, citing credible threat to life and safety. Kentucky, West Virginia enact bans on sex changes for children. Kentucky's legislature voted Wednesday to override the Democratic governor's veto of a bill that would ban sex change surgeries and treatments for children. Next door in West Virginia, Governor Jim Justice signed a law banning surgeries, cross-sex hormones, and puberty blockers for minors. Hormones and puberty blockers can be prescribed for those who are generally diagnosed with severe gender dysphoria and have parental approval. At least 11 states have now acted to protect children from the ghouls, groomers, medical quacks, and profiteers. School reviewing policies after drag queen caught on video straddling a young student. A North Carolina public school says it's looking at ways to revise campus policies after a video of a drag queen straddling a young student went viral. Kids as young as 14 taking part in a program for high schoolers at Forsyth Technical Community College were invited to the school's LGBTQ plus Pride Festival. Promotional material mentioned a drag performance. However, according to Fox News, parents of the underage students were not notified of the nature of the event. A source told Fox Digital that students were in email they'd be free pizza at the event. Nothing about drag performances. On Tuesday, Libs of TikTok posted a video showing adults having a grand time as a drag queen appears to give a kid a lap dance. Wow. And it just goes on about just other things. It's so much. And this one here, this is another article. Trans identified people need our help. This is by Michael Brown. This was posted again March 31st of this year. It says, and that's what I mean about picking our words carefully, being prayerful, and being led by the Holy Spirit during these times. And especially if the Lord has given you a platform, a following, if you will, and you have influence, right, in the community, and again, He's giving you a platform um, to speak, whether it be on social media and whatever else. Again, this is Michael Brown. He says, I am fully aware that some readers of this article will be deeply offended, accusing me of extreme con- condensation and transphobia. In a word, they would say, we don't need or want your help or compassion. To the contrary, it's people like you who create problems for us. Yes, I fully expect such reactions, but it is love for God, love for people, and love for truth that compel me to write. To be clear, I am not saying that we can generalize about trans-identified individuals based on the recent mass shooting at a private Christian school in Nashville by a trans-identified female shooter. That would be cruel and unfair. But I am saying that we should focus on the serious needs within the transgender community, needs that no amount of surgery or hormones can fully address. In the words of Robert L. Vasso, MMFT, a California-based licensed marriage and family therapist and professional clinical counselor, we need to educate pastors that the human condition is full of contradictions, paradoxes, and failings due to the fallen condition of the human race. There are many physical and psychological phenomena that illustrate this, including autoimmune disorders, inflammation, mental retardation, autism, and yes, transgenderism. Vassar wrote these words in a group email in response to Quentin Van Meter, a pediatric endocrinologist and president of the American College of Pediatricians. He has observed, unfortunately, there are Christian pastors in all sorts of denominations who are promoting the trans agenda with the argument that God doesn't make mistakes, and therefore these true trans patients are God's creation. They were in full force yesterday in Austin, Texas, rallying against the HB 1686, which will ban all affirmation efforts. The Episcopal Church is all in on trans. Vasil's point was well taken. There are underlying mental and or emotional issues that lay at the heart of gender dysphoria, and affirming people's struggles and delusions is the worst thing we can do. How else do we explain the constant mantra that if I don't get gender affirming surgery, I'm going to kill myself? I'm not denying or belittling the depth of these people's struggles. I'm simply saying that threats of I must have this or I will kill myself are not the threats of emotionally and or mentally whole people. In the same way, those who are emotionally and mentally whole are not calling for days of vengeance against those who want to stop the chemical castration and genital mutilation of children. Yes, that's the very thing the transgender activists have done, changing their previous Trans Day of Visibility to a Trans Day of Vengeance, held annually on March 31st. Note also that the organizers did not change the title of this event in the aftermath of the Nashville shooting. They did decide to cancel the event's uh, April 1st march in D.C., but it was out of concern that they would be targeted for violence. And rather than take an ounce of responsibility for their own inflammatory rhetoric, they blamed the flood of raw hatred directed towards the trans community after the Tennessee shooting. Thankfully, Twitter had the sense to remove tweets related to the event, as explained by Ella Irwin, Twitter's chief of trust and safety. We do not support tweets that incite violence, irrespective of those who post them. Vengeance does not imply peaceful protests. Organizers or support for peaceful protests is okay. The language of the organizers of the event does not speak of peaceful protests either, calling for allies to stand up and fight with us to bring down the forces that try to subjugate us all. As reported by the Daily Mail, a controversial group behind Trans Day of Vengeance raised money for firearms training as other trans protesters posed with guns ahead of March in D.C. on Saturday. Yes, despite 3 9-year-olds being gunned down by a transgender shooter at a private Christian school in Nashville, activists are still rallying the troops to protest for a Trans Day of Vengeance, months after raising money for firearms training. Worse still, the mass murderer Audrey Hale is now being celebrated by gun-toting trans activists as a martyr against transphobia from hateful Christian bigots like you genociding us. The message continues: we will defend ourselves from you. Where is your God now? Pray for mercy because we can't show any. These are not the words of a well person. Instead, sentiments like this are as dangerous as they are disturbing. What else can you call it when a mass murderer becomes a victim and the murderer's victims become the guilty party? Of course, we can always point to the social insanity of allowing biological males to compete against biological females. In that regard, a Canadian male weightlifter, Avi Silverberg, bearded and dressed as a male, entered a Canadian female powerlifting competition identified as a woman. He did this to make a point, quickly demolishing the previous record, which had been set by a man who identified as a woman and who has now been crushing the female competition. Even Joe Rogan recently opined that the trans athletic thing is an expletive crime. But the issue here is not just one of fairness, it's one of wellness. That there are serious issues that must be addressed if we want to help those who identify as transgender. I'm not speaking here about people who are intersex and who have biological or chromosomal abnormalities. I'm speaking here of people whose battle is one of the mind. A recent article in the Archives of Sexual Behavior titled Rapid Onset Gender Dysphoria, Parent Reports on 1655 Possible Cases, underscores this need, specifically for those who suddenly develop gender dysphoria in their teen years. As the article states, one statistically robust finding was both disturbing and seemingly important. Youths with a history of mental health issues were especially likely to have taken steps to socially and medically transition. This relationship held even after statistically adjusting for likely confounders, i.e., age. The finding is concerning because youth with mental health issues may be especially likely to lack judgment necessary to make these important, in the case of medical transition, permanent decisions. The finding supports the worries of parents whose preferences differ from their gender dysphoric children. It is consistent with another finding of this study that parents believe gender clinicians and clinics pressured their families toward transition. The finding is particularly concerning given that parents tended to rate their children as worse off after transition. As for those who develop gender dysphoria at much younger ages, the best solution is to allow them to grow out of it, which the vast majority will, while trying to address the root causes of their struggles. This is not hatred, this is common sense, compassion, and from the viewpoint of an increasing number of countries, the wisest professional thing to do. Do I believe that disproportionate number of trans identified people are violent? No. Do I believe that as people they are a special menace to society? Certainly not. Are they our enemies? God forbid. Yahushua died for them the same way he died for each of us. And we must recognize that our fight is with spiritual forces, not with people, as in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. But I do believe that trans activism, sponsored enthusiastically by the Biden administration, is a real threat to our societal stability. And more importantly, I believe that we need to recognize that the transgender community is filled with wounded and hurting people. And even with endless affirmation and unlimited medical options, their pain will not go away. Let's continue to do our best to find constructive ways to help them, even as they view us as enemies, accuse us of genocide, and in some cases threaten us with vengeance. Praise Yah. So there you go. So, again, reaching out in love or with love, and it just goes on and on and on. There's one here by the was posted by the Daily Wire, again, March 31st. Leftist protesters arrested as Kentucky Republicans override governor's veto to ban child sex changes. The Republican-led Kentucky legislature voted Wednesday to override Democrat Governor Andy Beshear's veto of a bill banning child sex changes as nearly 20 left-wing protesters were arrested at the State House on criminal trespassing charges. As lawmakers were meeting, Kentucky State Police were asked to restore order as protesters shouted and chanted, disrupting the ongoing legislative meeting. The bill passed the House 76 to 23 and in the Senate 29 to 8, surpassing the requirements to override Beshear's veto. The bill will ban life-altering procedures such as puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and sex change surgeries, like performing double mastectomies on girls who say they are boys. Additionally, it will allow teachers to not be compelled to use students' so-called preferred pronoun and prohibits the teaching of gender ideology at schools. Praise Yah for that. We cannot allow people to continue down the path of fantasy to where they're going to end up 10, 20, 30 years down the road to find themselves miserable from decisions that they made when they were young, said Republican Representative Shane Baker, who said at an event supporting the bill before the vote. The vote came as protesters shouted and chanted at lawmakers, eventually leading to the arrest of 19 people after police were asked to restore order. Yeah, so they have a video. That's right. This here also was from the Daily Wire. Transgender activists shout out schools inside Florida Capitol building. So again, I live in Florida, so the protest comes days after Nashville school shooting. Transgender activists crowded into Florida's Capitol building in Tallahassee on Friday, shouting and demanding trans rights. The protesters gathered in the rotunda inside Florida's Capitol building, holding signs reading "Cure Transphobia" and "Stop Trans Genocide," among other slogans. This fight does not end here, one protester yells to others in a video posted to social media. We keep showing up every single day. We keep making our voices heard. And one of them said, "Whose schools? Our schools." The crowd then chants, led by the first protester. So, the "Our Schools" chant likely refers to Florida Governor Ron DeSantis's parental rights education law, which prohibits classroom instruction on sexual orientation or gender identity for kindergarten through third grade, or in a way that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate. Critics dubbed the bill "Don't Say Gay," despite the word gay not appearing anywhere in the bill text. The bill went into effect last year. The Florida Capitol demonstration was just one of many protests across the country for Transgender Day of Visibility. Protests were planned for Friday in all 50 states, as well as Washington, D.C. The protests come just days after a trans-identifying school shooter killed 6 at a Christian school in Tennessee. So it goes on a little bit there, but no need to get into that. And just this last article here from, again, the Daily Wire. This was posted March 31st. Here's what's going on with Trans Days of Visibility and Vengeance, and how does this Nashville shooting tie in? If you've been online over the past several days, you've been likely see Transgender Day of Visibility promoted by transgender activists and even some companies and government entities. If you're even more online, you may have seen rumors about Trans Day of Vengeance. What about these days, and is there connection to Monday's deadly school shooting perpetuated by a trans-identifying 28-year-old woman? Transgender Day of Visibility has been recognized annually on March 31st by transgender activists internationally for over a decade. It was invented in 2009 by trans-identifying activist Rachel Crandall of Michigan, who was frustrated that the only day honoring transgender people was Transgender Day of Remembrance, which mourns the murder of trans-identifying people. Over the last few years, Transgender Day of Visibility has gained wider recognition. In 2021, President Biden officially recognized the holiday, the first president to do so. This year, Biden recognized the day on Friday by blaming MAGA extremists for attacks on trans-identifying people just days after a trans-identifying female school shooter shot up a Christian school in Nashville. Trans Day of Vengeance appears to be much more sinister than the Transgender Day of Visibility, which is little more than a corporate holiday in comparison. A group of transgender activists, the Trans Radical Activist Network, TRAN, called for a Trans Day of Vengeance on Saturday, April 1st, which again was canceled. Praise Yah. Transgender Day of Visibility. Protesters were told to show up to the Supreme Court wearing masks and with a buddy. However, TRAN has now canceled the Day of Vengeance event in D.C. due to a credible threat to life and safety. The group said on its website. This threat is a direct result of the flood of raw hatred directed towards the trans community after the Tennessee shooting, TRAN said. Individuals who had nothing to do with that heinous act have been subjected to a highly serious threats and blamed only because of their gender identity. This is one of the steps in genocide, and we will continue our efforts to protect trans lives. A group that claims to be Trans Virginia chapter called for a Trans Day of Vengeance event to take place outside the Daily Wire's headquarters in Nashville. Tennessee's neighbors, when can we make this happen? The Virginia chapter wrote in a tweet that has retweeted by the main Trans Twitter account. Trans Virginia chapter also said it will raise money for firearms / self-defense training for trans Virginians. Wow. Some conservatives warning about Trans Day of Vengeance were caught up in the crackdown. Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene's Twitter account was restricted for a week after she posted a Day of Vengeance poster, and Federalist CEO Sean Davis was similarly suspended. Although the Day of Vengeance was promoted prior to the Nashville school shooting by a trans-identifying woman, TRAN said they reject any connection between that horrific event and ours. So anyway. So that's pretty much, that's a lot of articles, a lot of information. But again, and it's a little dated now. Happened a couple of weeks ago. But it's a lot of information. But again, we need to be prayerful. We need to, again, just show Messiah, show his love, speak to people, pray accordingly, pray as we are led by the Holy Spirit. I just wanted to share those articles because, again, it's very pertinent. There, again, our battles against flesh, not against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities and rulers in the heavenly places, right? So this is a spiritual battle that we are in. So all of it should be in prayer. We should be asking to, we should be putting on the full armor of Elohim, the full armor of God. Continue and wage spiritual warfare and just pray against these spirits that come from the pit of hell itself, right? Pray for the souls of men, women, and children. Pray against these evils that are being perpetuated, that the enemy is using and moving through flesh and blood people, through government leaders and through the Biden administration and through these laws that are being enacted, and just very evil things that are going on. These are spirits that are in the world, and we need to pray accordingly. That's the reason why I share. It's just evil, not that the people themselves are evil, but they are lending themselves to evil, and the devil is just running rampant, and also just trying to confuse God's people, the servants, his servants of the Kodashim, the saints. He is busy with keeping us busy. He is busy with keeping us distracted. He is busy with some of us politicizing the gospel. He is busy with just, we're going in a million different directions. We're not staying united as we should. We're not building one another up in love. We're not encouraging one another as we should. Instead, many of us I'm speaking about unbelievers now. Many of us are tearing one another down, and many of us are also steeped in the traditions of men. And we need to stand on the word of Yahuwah and what the Bible says and what the Bible commands, and for us to have a biblical worldview, and for us to love Yahuwah, to love him, love the Father, the Most High, our Creator, to love him, to know him, and to make him known in this generation, and to pray against the very real evils that are going on, and to pray for the souls of transgender people. We are not to speak hate against them, because we'll be playing right into the hands of the enemy if we do that, because that's what he wants. He wants the trans people against Christians. He wants the Christians against the transgender people, when that's not the heart of God. That's not how we show the love of Yahushua HaMashiach. We're to love them and meet them where they are at, but we're also to speak truth and listen. Not just speak at them, but to listen to them. They're confused. So that's why, again, I just, the Lord put in my heart to share all of that, and we just, again, need to be prayerful. So that's all I have. Again, it's a little dated. The incident happened a couple of weeks ago, and but let's again continue to pray for Nashville, for Tennessee, and just the healing and restoration and reconciliation and everything, for forgiveness, for healing to take place, for the and for the families and for the town, for the cities, and everything. So, I just pray, that everyone is having a blessed Holy Week. Have a blessed rest of the weekend. In the name of Yahushua HaMashiach, we love you.